So imagine being a heroin addict and you could quit your addiction without a second thought by changing your environment. Imagine food or drink tasting different because of where you are. And this is all to do with environment. Imagine getting up early, going in the gym and trying wonderful new foods that you've never tried before. That is also environment. Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Dawson. And if you're done with yo-yo diets, calorie counters, meal plans, then you're in the right place. I'm the author of Quit Your Diet, Think to Shrink, a book and course designed to help you develop a 14-day plan to quitting diets forever. You're probably here because you've done my Quit Your Diet quiz and your outcome pointed to environment. And if you haven't done the test yet, there's a link around here somewhere. It's just 12 questions and they are aimed at determining where your weight problem is. That is where your weight problem is. And in turn, this might answer the question of why you feel so much resistance to your diet or weight loss goals. As you now know, if you watched the video before this one, we can break any attempt at change into 4 or 6 levels. For the sake of this video, we're going to use 4 levels. There is a more detailed video on this called The 4 Levels of Change. You can watch that by clicking in this playlist. But simply put, we have to imagine a pyramid and we're going to attempt to place our weight problem and a solution on one of the rungs of the pyramid. And what this tells us is that to be effective, an intervention, and whatever that might be, a solution to your problem has to be at the same level or higher on this pyramid. So just quickly, and there is a more detailed video on this, here's the levels again for clarity. At the bottom level, there's environment. That's your surroundings, everything around you. Behavior is the next one, and above that you've got capabilities. That is your knowledge of what it is you're trying to do or not do. And then above that, I've grouped together for ease beliefs and identities. This is you as a person internally, and this is a combination of the top 3 levels that tell who you are. The reason you're here is you probably scored environment when you did the test, and if you haven't done it, as I say, there is a link around here somewhere. Also, if you want to explore the other levels, then you can just watch the other 3 or 4 videos in this playlist. Now, I made a joke on my training course about environment being the easiest level to deal with because it's simply your surroundings. And my joke was that if you're an ice cream taster at the ice cream factory, then your solution is quite easy. You just go in Monday morning and hand your notice in and your weight problem disappears. But I was being really cynical there. Let's just go a little deeper into what I mean by environment, how it affects your life and your decisions. So we need to think about how much control we really have over our choices. Most of us believe we've got this fully conscious, rational decision-making process. And that just is not true. And a lot of what drives us isn't conscious. It's not like a well thought out decision. A lot of it is our environment. So let me tell you what I mean by that, because I want to show you just how powerful your environment really is and how you can manipulate this to your benefit. Even in just tiny ways, you can change everything else much more easily than you might think. One of the most fascinating studies in this area came from the Vietnam War. And during the Vietnam War, there was a staggering number of American soldiers who became addicted to heroin whilst out there in Vietnam. And naturally, the US government heard about this and panicked a little bit because clearly these guys were going to come back home and bring this heroin addiction with them, and there would be an epidemic. They imagined like thousands of heroin addicted soldiers coming back into the US. However, something really strange happened. When those soldiers came home, almost 90% of them simply stopped using heroin. No months of rehab, no massive government interventions. They just quit. So how was that even possible? It wasn't because they had more willpower. It was because the environment that had supported their addiction disappeared. In Vietnam, heroin was everywhere. It was easy to get. It was socially normalized by the stresses of war. And at home, this environment changed. Different cues, different stresses. They were at home with their families again. There was no exposure to heroin, and their behavior shifted. They became different people because they now lived in a different world. And this is an illustration of how powerful your environment can be. And it's not just extreme cases of addiction. Maybe you can think of your own examples here. Remember the time you went on holiday and you tasted this wonderful local liqueur, and then you thought you would buy a couple of bottles, bring it home, and sit there just like you did on holiday and sip this beautiful local liqueur. And by the time you get home and sit in your front room, it tastes pretty disgusting, and it just becomes an ornament in your drinks cabinet. And then there's these ideas of these crime-ridden areas. We know that these crime-ridden areas where an absolute zero tolerance to graffiti and all that kind of thing, the area is cleaned up and suddenly crime rates just dive. It's the environment. So when you did the quiz, it pointed to environment. So being the bottom level, then it's clear that pretty much any level of intervention could have an effect. And it's happening in small ways every single day. You know, if you've got an environment, say a kitchen that's cluttered with snacks, or you're like me and you've got that cupboard of doom that used to sit at eye level right in front of your eyes as you put the kettle on, and you stick your head in there and there's always something, just a little something to snack on. You know, if our phones are full of negative news alerts, how do you feel when you wake up and it starts your day? Is your workspace chaotic? So it's easy to kind of blame ourselves, but some of these solutions are quite simple. You know, we just say, I need more discipline, I need to do better. But often, if the environment allows us to not do better, then you can see how it has an effect on our behavior. So you're trying to fight against an environment that's constantly pushing you in the wrong direction. But there is good news. You can kind of flip this. You can set yourself up to be nudged in the right direction instead. So small changes can have a massive impact. Things like, and the science proves this, putting fresh fruit on the coffee table instead of hiding it in the fridge. Cleaning your desk so that you have a clean space to work on. Blocking social media till later in the day. Something I find really hard to do, especially with news sites. But if you can wait until later in the day, until you've got that day going, instead of, letting this stuff bring us down. Another way of changing your environment is to spend more time with people who are inspirational and less time with those who just drain our energy and pull us down. And these tiny changes really matter. These are not just good ideas. They're really powerful environmental signals that prime us to succeed because our environment is helping us, whether that's by design or by default. We get to choose which one it is. So if you take nothing else from this little video, remember, you're not broken. You don't need to rely on superhuman willpower. Just take some time to look at your environment, make some changes that support you and your environment, your workspace, your car, the social media you look at, the people who influence us, making the bed, cleaning out the car. So we need to set our environment to support the life we want to live. You may not work at the ice cream factory and be able to just hand your notice it on Monday morning and solve your weight issue. The quiz was a bit of fun and it isn't scientific fact, but still I hope that by applying some of those tips, you'll feel a difference. Because the truth is, when you walk into a room, you're not just stepping into space, you're stepping into a set of instructions. And these instructions can lead you towards your goals or away from your goals. I have an attached PDF for this video. You can grab that down there if you've probably already got it if you've done the quiz itself. So start with little things. Move healthy food from the fridge to the countertop. Choose slightly healthier snacks. Create focus zones or little areas with no clutter where you can maybe read or write or journal, all those kinds of things. And give the brain signals that that's the kind of person you are. Even putting your walking shoes by the front door where you can see them, at the very least, says to you, you're the kind of person that walks, even if you don't use them as much as possible. So there's no big plans here. There's nothing huge. Changing your phone background to something more inspirational. I wrote the book Quit Your Diet to provide you with tools that have helped millions make incredible change, and they can do the same for you. And if you did the quiz, then you've already got the first 3 chapters of my book. If you haven't done the quiz, then it's 12 questions. There's a link below, and it's designed to find out where your problem lies upon this pyramid. Click if you want to watch the previous video and find out about the levels of change. Click the next video to find out what a man with a 30-second memory taught us about behaviour and habits. And in that video, I'll be talking about how you can break or divert those habits that drive you on a day-to-day behaviour, much deeper level than you think. Thanks for being there. I hope you get a chance to do the quiz for yourself and get the first 3 chapters of my book, Quit Your Diet. Consider subscribing. Thumbs ups and comments and things like that really help us spread this message. And if you want to go to my website, it's a great time to jump on board at my website and become a member and join us in this community. We're giving up diets, giving up calorie counters, giving up meal plans, and taking responsibility with some real tools and a real plan to help you achieve that. So do ensure that you subscribe and become a member on the website. We've all quit diets in the past. However, this is different for 2 reasons. 1, you will be actually planning to quit your diet, not just the one you're on, but all of them forever. But more importantly, number 2, you will know exactly what to do when that happens. So thanks for being there. My name's Mike Dawson, the author of Quit Your Diet, Think to Shrink. I'm going to see you in the next video.